So you might remember last year we took a look at SkyOS, which was a really fascinating operating system not based on Linux or any other existing system. And on top of that, it was developed by a single person. Well, today we're going to be revisiting the world of non-Linux alternative operating systems by taking a look at Visopsys. Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. So Visopsys is something that has been on my radar for a little while now, and I think I actually first discovered it back when I first took a look at SkyOS, because both of these operating systems were written from scratch and were developed primarily by a single person. But where this differs from SkyOS is that Visopsys is an open source project that is still in active development. In fact, the version we're going to be taking a look at today is 0.92 that was released on September 21st, 2023. Which, yes, was a while ago, but with this being a one-man project, it's understandable that it's not going to be getting like really frequent updates. And the website that I'll have linked down below describes it as a small, fast, and open source OS with a simple but functional GUI, preemptive multitasking, and virtual memory. And we're going to be trying it out on an XP era system today that far exceeds its minimum system requirements of at least a Pentium processor and 64 megabytes of RAM. And I'll just go ahead and show you the specs that we're working with here. We've got a Pentium 4 clocked at 2.8 gigahertz and about 1.5 gigabytes of RAM. So yeah, we should be able to try out this operating system no problem. And I say try it out because, well, I can't get this operating system installed on anything. The first system I tried to install Visopsys on was the 98 PC, but I'll just go ahead and switch over to it here. It immediately errored out saying that the boot CD could not be identified, and this is it trying to boot off of the CD right now. It was able to get to this menu, but trying to go any further than this, you can't do. I also tried the other two releases that Visopsys has because it's got a CD version, a floppy disk version, and a USB version. I tried the USB version on here by using Plop Boot Manager. I also tried the floppy disk version on here, which you think would work totally fine. Nope, it can't even boot from the floppy disk yet. It errors out with not that it couldn't find the boot CD, but the boot device. And funnily enough, this was actually going to be that video I made back in 2024 on Calibri OS, you know, that I titled like a modern OS on a floppy disk. Like, holy cow. This was going to be that video because you can run this from a floppy disk and it's supposed to work. Well, I can't get this to work on any system I've tried. I've tried 8 different computers. 8 computers. Can't get it to install on anything. I can't get the floppy disk to boot, can't get the USB to boot, and I can get the CD version to boot on 2 systems. The XP computer that we're going to be running it on today and the Dell Latitude D610. I can actually get it to install on the Dell Latitude D610, but then when I try to restart and boot from the hard drive, it errors out saying that the boot device could not be identified. So, trust me, I've spent like days trying to get this working on all these different systems, and I've not gotten anywhere, so that's why, unfortunately, we're just going to be using the CD version of it on the XP computer here. And we'll go ahead and shut down because I do want to show you what happens when I try to install this on this computer, because like I said, it can boot off of the live CD just fine. It's actually the install process where we experience issues. So I am going to swap out the hard drive so that we don't mess up our XP installation. And what you do is we're going to go in, click on install, and it's identified our disk here. We'll click on OK and open up the disk manager. So we're just going to delete all the partitions and then go to our empty space and create a new one. And we'll just make this 20 gigabytes in size. And you see we get this huge list of partition types, but Visopsys only works on either a FAT12, a FAT16, or a FAT32 partition. Those are the only partition types that it has full read and write capabilities with. But the reason why all these different file system types show up in here as supported is because this disk manager tool is also available under another name, Partition Logic, and that is a bootable CD that is based off of Visopsys that is strictly this disk manager program that you can use to, you know, partition your hard disk. So it's like an alternative to gparted, but you also have some additional tools in there. And we'll take a look at that towards the end of this video because I would like to briefly demo that. But we're going to click on FAT32 and then we're going to set it as the active partition and we will write changes to the disk and confirm. But we're not quite done yet, because if we were just to close out of this and go through the installer, it's not going to automatically write a master boot record to the disk. So if you didn't have one already, the system's not going to find anything to boot from. In fact, I experienced this in a virtual machine on my main Windows system, which, by the way, I can't get this system to boot in either VMware or VirtualBox running under my Windows PC. It actually errors out with the same boot device cannot be identified that I experienced on the Latitude D610. But anyways, if you don't tell it to write a master boot record to the disk, it just won't be able to boot from anything. So you have to go up here to disk and write basic MBR, and then it says after you write changes, the active partition will always boot automatically. Do you want to proceed? Yes. And then we can go and close out of this and continue on with the installation. So we'll select our partition, and then you get a choice between basic install and full install. I've been doing the full install just so we get everything, but I've also tried the basic install. Doesn't make a difference. And then you obviously just want to format it. You could also choose the file system type if you want to manually specify something, but we'll click on install. Are you sure? Yes. And then it will copy the boot sector. That it usually is able to do. And then this is where it always fails. It mounts the target disk and it says it finished doing that, but it cannot unmount it, and that's exactly what it errors out with right here. Unable to unmount the target disk, you click OK, then it complains about the partition size being too small, because I guess it's just not seeing the disk at all right now. It says 0K, and then it just quits, and do you want to reboot? We'll say yes. And I've tried various different things to get around this, and long story short, nothing works. I've tried to leave some empty space before the actual partition starts in case it has to copy like a boot partition to there. I've tried to go in and say maybe we'll do like FAT12, and then, you know, I've tried to use the whole drive. I've tried to make a smaller partition. I've tried to have it set as like this partition here, and then write changes, not format it, but then go out of it, go in here, and then from this menu, choose Format, choose File System Type, and then choose the file system type from here. I've tried basic install, full install. I mean, just like I said, long story short, I can't get it to install. So, had I been recording this whole time, this would have definitely ended up being a but everything went wrong video. But, like, believe it or not, I don't want that to happen because, like, this was supposed to be a demonstration video, and I'd like to demonstrate the operating system. So, that's what we're going to be doing. So, I'm going to click on Continue here. And even though it is from the CD, we can still, you know, go in here and access the system in a read-only state and take a look at what it has to offer. Now, the overall interface is definitely functional. It's not the most flashy thing in the world. It doesn't have any fancy like animations or anything like that, but it gets the job done. On the desktop here, you've got a few icons. You've got a menu bar up here. Window only shows things if you have a window open, and then exit, you've got log out and shut down. So we'll just start from the top here and open up Computer. This is where you get access to your various devices. We've got our floppy drive, CD that we're currently booted from, our hard disk, which says Visopsys actually. That's interesting, but well, this is probably just because of the partition that we you know, made on here. It just labeled itself as Visopsys. And then we have a temp directory over here. I probably should not have clicked on the hard drive because I don't think it's going to be able to read from it because there's not actually anything on it. So we'll just close out of this. And yeah, you might have been able to see there for, oh gosh, application exception. Okay, we're off to a fantastic start. Can we, yeah, I should not have done that. I might have to just restart the system. And this is interesting, like this message is only coming up when I click and like hold down the mouse button. Let's hit enter maybe. If I click and hit enter, okay, that got, no, that did not get rid of it. All right, I guess I'm gonna have to just force restart because I cannot get to this menu. Okay, that's better. So what I was trying to demonstrate there is when you move windows around, you can see that they don't drag the, you know, the whole window contents with them. They just become these, you know, boxes just with an outline, and you just drag it around. Very similar to how like early versions of Windows did. Another thing of note, these icons here were taken from KDE, specifically the Oxygen icon set for KDE Plasma, which is kind of funny because SkyOS used some KDE icons as well. We'll go ahead and close out of the computer window, And we've got a file browser as well, which, you know, is kind of the same thing going on here, just with, you know, we can actually see like the full file path. So we can go into like users, and, you know, there's nothing in there, but we can go into system and you know, just browse the file system. Here's the JPEG from the like startup screen. There is an image viewer that's going to be under programs here, where we're going to be spending most of our time, I would imagine. There's also a command prompt window here. So you've got a whole bunch of commands. If we type out help, and this just gives you an explanation of every single command you can do and what that command does. So we've got copy, we can set the date, we can defragment, delete user. I mean, we can just continue on here. I mean, there's, you know, a good amount of commands in here. And of course, you can also just launch applications like the file browser. So we could type that out if we want to, for instance, file browse, and that'll just bring up the file browser application. And under programs, we've got a good selection of applications in here. We have an archive manager for, you know, messing around with archives and unpacking them and doing all that. So not really much to see here because there aren't any like archives on this system to extract from what I can see. But, you know, if you had like a third-party piece of software you wanted to install in here that maybe came in a zip file or something, that would be useful. However, from what I've seen, there's not any third-party software available for Visopsys, which honestly makes sense with this being a more like hobbyist project that's not really intending to be like a replacement for Windows or Mac OS or anything like that. So there's probably very few, if any, developers that are actually making software for this. We've got a calculator. Now, with the way that Visopsys works, much like Windows, all of your application functionality is going to be contained within the window itself. It's not like Mac OS where, you know, the menu bar up here will change and have different, you know, functions depending on what the active window currently is. You always have your window menu and your exit menu. What you can do, though, is minimize stuff. So if I want to minimize the calculator, that's what this button is. And you see we do get a little bit of an animation there. That just minimizes it to the window menu. I can go in here, get calculator. There's no animation for bringing the window back, only for minimizing it. But yeah, so you got pretty basic self-explanatory window management. You've got a calendar program. You've got options down here for flipping between the months and even the years. So, you know, if I want to go back to January of 2025, we can do that. We can go to 2026 if we want to. There's no way to add like events or anything. You can just click on, you know, the days. I don't think this is actually setting the system date because that would be done from administration. But I mean, yeah, you can just close out of it, open it back up, and yeah, we are set to April 21st, which is the day that I'm recording this. So pretty basic calendar. Command window we just saw, computer. So, you know, you have some like repeats in here of what's on the desktop. You got your file browser. You have your image editor. And there it is, visopsys.jpg, so we'll open that up. I've actually not really messed around with this. You see we're like way zoomed in here. We'll go ahead and like make the window a little bit larger here. So you can do that, of course, by just going at the edges there. And yeah, we are like can we, oh, we can't zoom out any more than that? Oh my gosh, yeah, like the zoom out button is just grayed out. We can only zoom in. Okay, so this is probably the color selector. Okay, we just have RGB sliders, so we don't have like a color picker, you know, like where you can just pick different swatches. You have to just know like the exact RGB values of the color you want. So here's like a pink. And then can we set like this back color here? Is that just in the icon? I think it is. I don't think we can like specify that. But okay, let's maybe start. You can draw on here. Oh, that's a bit of delay. You see that? We can make shapes though, so we can do that. Can we fill? There aren't any other tools except for like what's up here. Okay, we could change the line thickness. Let's do that maybe at 100. And let's go to maybe here, line thickness. Okay, that was selecting that. And okay, so this is making shapes that are full. But yeah, I mean, very basic looking image editor. I mean, it's nice that it's on here for sure. Now, how do we save something? Is that... Okay, this. What if we just try to overwrite the existing file there? Error saving file, yeah, because it's on the CD. So that's what this temp directory is for, because we can actually save stuff in here. So we'll just call that like test. I don't know what file extension it's using, but we can save that, and that should have, if we go into computer here and temp, yeah, we've got test in there. And I guess that's still a JPEG because that was the original format. But it didn't give us like an option to change you know, let me go ahead and just make some more changes to it here. And then, oh, I guess you can't like save as, you're just saving to the existing file. That's interesting. Okay, let's close out of that and open it back up and then save. Now it will give us the option. Yeah, there's no like file extension or like file type picker. So I guess I could, like, what if I just type in, I don't know, we go to temp here and type in like test dot whatever. Like, will that actually give it that file extension? Yeah, it's just gonna remain a JPEG. And yeah, file extensions are a thing in here. I mean, you see we've got TXT files, we've got a .blank file, and then here's again our JPEG. So I think it just is like pulling the, you know, file type information from the original file, and you can only just save it as that type of file. Next up, we got Minesweeper, because, you know, who doesn't love that? And oh, I just lost immediately. Isn't that great? Yeah, let's maybe just go in here again so I can click around a little bit here. Okay, well, yeah, I'm not particularly good at Minesweeper. Oh my gosh, I lost like 3 times in a row. Network, we've got Telnet. I don't know if we're actually on the network, but there's one Telnet server that I know, towel.blinkenlights.nl. This is that ASCII text version of Star Wars. Invalid address or unknown host name. Yeah, not really surprising. I don't think it has detected our network adapter. I don't really know if there's a way to configure that. We'll see if we go under administration, if there's something under there. But we got screenshot, so we can save a screenshot. I guess it just takes one now. Save this as screen, and yeah, saving screenshot. So we go in here, and there's a screenshot. Now I am a little bit curious though. Let me see if I can put in like a floppy disk. See if we can like even read off of that, because I'd like to copy these files over to like some sort of removable media so I can look at them on my computer here, my Windows system, and just see like what file extension they're using. So let's go to our floppy disk. It is reading off that. Oh, never mind, I can't mount it. Let me maybe try another disk here. Cannot mount, okay. Let me try a USB flash drive that I didn't just drop on the floor. Oh, look at that, it found it. But it can't change directory to it. That's, okay. Oh, now it can't even change the temp directory. What? Okay, let's just close out of this. Is this like locking up again? Maybe we got too much stuff open. Okay, computer. Cannot load icon image, what? Okay. That isn't good. I think we're gonna have to restart. That's, that is not good. Why is it all of a sudden, like, it can't read from the CD, I guess? I mean, I've not messed with the CD at all. But yeah, like, we can't open up any of this stuff anymore. We're just getting errors like it can't read. Can we even go to shutdown? We don't have the full shutdown menu. There's supposed to be a shutdown and, like, restart button here. What if I hit enter? No, it's not gonna do anything. Alright, I gotta force restart the system again. But this time, I'm gonna leave the USB drive in here while the system boots up so it can just mount it immediately. There it is. Oh, wait a second. This is, oh, this is that's right. This is the Visopsys USB that I was like, why is this like the file structure in here? Yeah, this is the USB drive that I was trying to use to boot off of, you know, Visopsys on these other systems. So okay, we should still be able to go. Oh no, that we've lost our temp stuff, because of course we did. Okay, let me go back into programs here. I'll just take another screenshot. It's really reading off the CD now. This thing is spinning up super fast. Okay, now it just stopped. The drive is not spinning at all, and we're just getting this like really quick flashing hourglass cursor there. I wonder if it's because the USB drive is a Visopsys drive, and that's kind of conflicting with the Visopsys install that it's booted from off the CD. That might be a stretch, but let me try to plug in another drive and do a force restart again, because I don't think we're really... I think we're just locked up again. Alright, and now, for some reason, we have 2 separate drives showing up, even though there's only 1 partition on this drive. It's a FAT32 partition. Let's try to go to SD0A, and there's no media in there. Can we go? Okay, so maybe it can't work with all USB drives. And this, by the way, is the same drive I just had plugged in. I just formatted it to FAT32, so like I don't know why it's not working. It should detect it. Alright, and this system is just behaving really wonky just with this USB drive plugged in. Like, maybe it's not mounted properly, but like it's not, the system's just not opening up any other windows now. Can we go to shut down again, or to log out? It's gonna like hang on that too. Okay, so I'm taking the USB drive out. We're just gonna boot it up the way it was before. Don't you love how even when I come up with a band-aid fix for a problem, we still encounter other problems when we're trying to just use the system? Where were we? Yeah, we were on network. Oh no, we were on screenshot. We were taking a screenshot, that's right. We also have Snake. So we've got a, yeah, we got a Snake game on here too. That's pretty cool. Don't see that every day, you know, coming pre-installed with a system. Certainly not something Windows has. Microsoft, you gotta step it up, man. But yeah, so, you know, I think everybody knows how to play Snake. It's a pretty self-explanatory game. And I just died because, yeah, I ran into myself. You're not supposed to do that. So yeah, we got a text editor as well. Process computer caused a page fault exception at application address 000. Okay, well, we can still open up View, which we used before, actually, just to browse in system here. And we went to, you know, visopsys.jpg just to view this in here, so you can totally do that. And then we have a virtual keyboard. And can we move this thing around? It doesn't look like it. These buttons down here are not for moving it around. This up here, I'm assuming, is just the close option. Or that, okay, that just hides it. Okay, so it's like running in the background. If we right-click on it, we can quit. Okay, so that's useful. But yeah, it doesn't look like you can resize it. Oh, wait, never mind. Never mind. I spoke too soon. You can totally resize it. And you can kind of move it around. Like, can we go from the bottom here? Yeah, so you can, like, move it around that way. And then just make it larger here, you know, if you want it, like, at the top of the screen or something. Now it's a little bit too large. Yeah, you're gonna want it to be just down here at the bottom. You don't want it to be like, you know, taking up the whole freaking screen. But I guess you could make it really large if you really wanted to. We'll go ahead and leave that running, because why not? But that is everything in the programs folder. And then we get into administration, where we've got a configuration editor for changing, you know, you got all these comp files in here. And let's see, I see net progs. That might be like something network related, net admin. But do we have like a network settings? We do, network. Okay, so let's see, network devices. No supported network devices. I do have 2 network cards in here. It looks like I didn't find either of them. Not terribly surprising, but I was kind of hoping we could go on Telnet. But yeah, you know, there's no like web browser in here, so that's all you can do is just use the the freaking Telnet client. And you know, there's a packet sniffer and a ping tool in here as well. We've got a console window for viewing like that error that came up before, and just, you know, like the initial start process. We've got devices, which looks a lot kind of like device manager. You've got like a tree here. Here's our processor, and it shows our, you know, our vendor string and CPU type and family and all that stuff. We got memory, shows our size, BIOS, plug and play. We got PCI bus controller, you know, floppy disk, PS2 mouse, all that stuff. So you can mess around in there. Disk manager, this is the same tool that we saw before going through the install process. Something that's interesting that we will take a look at briefly in a moment is this developer also has another tool called Partition Logic, also on version 0.92, which is based off of Visopsys, and that's basically just this disk manager program. Maybe it's a more like advanced version of it, but it looks exactly the same. But it's strictly meant for you to boot off of either the CD, the floppy, or the USB drive, because there are 3 separate versions of it. And, you know, it's kind of like an alternative to Gparted or, you know, something like that, where you can partition drives and do all that sort of stuff. So we'll take a look at that in a moment, but we already took a look at the disk manager during the install process. We've got display here for changing your screen resolution. We can set a different background image, which it looks like there are a couple in here. Look at that. We've got mountain, rainbow, and wave. We'll set the wave because I think that looks kind of cool. We'll select that. I guess, do we hit OK? Did it not apply maybe? Let's try that again. OK. Well, that's interesting. It's not applying, and we can't even change the screen resolution over here. Now this might be because we're booting off of the CD. Maybe you can't change these options. We can disable the background wallpaper, but that doesn't save anything. Show a clock on the desktop. Okay, we can do that at least. But yeah, we can't seem to change the, like, to set one of these wallpapers as an image. Can we change the color for the desktop? Can we make this like a, I don't know, something not super eye straining? Can we go with that? No, that doesn't even save either. Huh. Well, those options are there. I guess if you install it, you can, you know, actually change all that stuff. File systems. So this shows the different drives and the file systems that are on them. Font editor. You got a few fonts in here, and so you can just see what each of those characters look like. And, I guess you can edit them, and yeah, you can go in here. Oh, it pulls up the image editor, actually, so that's useful. So you can go in and change what each of those characters looks like. And then this is where you can clearly see that this is using a KDE icon set because the install option has the KDE logo on it. But yeah, this will just bring up the same installer that we launched before. So you can run that from within the live CD environment if you want to, which is nice. You got keyboard mapping settings, so you can change your keyboard layout and all that stuff from here. Network we just saw. You have a program manager, which is, kind of like a task manager. You can go in here and kill processes and run programs if you knew the name of an executable, or you could just, browse for a specific file in there. Software. Now, this is where if we were on the internet, we could, download packages and stuff like that. I don't know how much is available, and of course I can't demonstrate it because, well, we're not on the network, but it's nice to have in here, definitely. We've also got system diagnostics. If you want to do a read-only test or a read-write test on the disk, and there's also a memory test. Let's go ahead and do a memory test. Why not? We'll see what that comes back with. Test completed with 0 errors. Well, isn't that nice? And then we have a user manager, which you can't add or delete users because, again, we don't have the full system installed, but very nice if you were to have this running off of a hard disk and you want multiple people to use the system. So yeah, that's everything under administration, and that is pretty much Visopsys in almost all of its glory. But before we end off the video, I do want to quickly show you Partition Logic, so we'll go ahead and pop this in. And so the startup process is like identical. It even identifies itself as Visopsys up there, but you just have this Partition Logic screen now, and there's no option to install because this is strictly meant to be run off of the CD or whatever other media that you chose to copy it to. And you just get the same, or what I think anyways, is the same disk manager tool. There very well might be, some other capabilities in here that aren't in the main one, but it does call itself Partition Logic. It does have that name instead of, disk manager or whatever it was before. And that is literally it. Though you do have under tools here, there's this new menu up here in the menu bar. You can go to your computer browser and system diagnostics and get a command window, get a text editor, administration, and get some of these options in here. And you can also take a screenshot. So it's basically a miniaturized version of Visopsys, and like you saw on the startup screen, it does identify itself as Visopsys in a few different areas, like here in the command window. It says Visopsys shell right there. But I think it's really impressive that this was all created by a single person. And yeah, I mean, it sucks that I wasn't able to get it fully installed, but I did try, like I said, on 8 separate computers and just didn't get anywhere. So maybe this will be worth revisiting in the future if I am able to eventually get it working. If anybody's got any suggestions, feel free to leave those down in the comments because I'm certainly open to hearing them. But that is pretty much going to wrap it up for this episode. I hope you all enjoyed this one. If you did, be sure to give it a thumbs up, get subscribed, maybe consider becoming a patron or a channel member to get early access to these videos before anybody else. But either way, I just want to thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.